we have our Spring project ready. As a next step, we can start writing some code which is going to help us to create beans with the help of Spring Framework. Let me go to the project, and under the project, I have an SRC folder. SRC means source. Inside this folder only, we need to write our source code. Under the main folder, there are subfolders like Java and resources. All our Java code we need to write inside this Java folder. This is how Maven projects usually set up. Under the resources, we usually define any properties that are required by our web application or any static data, images, everything can be placed under the resources. Since right now I'm looking to define some business logic with the help of Java programming language, under the Java subfolder, I'm going to create a new package. I'm going to press shortcut Command N. Inside the Windows, it is going to be Control N. And with that, you're going to get a pop-up here. You need to select package because first I want to create a package. The package that I want to create here is com.example.beans. Under this beans package only, I'm going to define my Java classes, which are going to be transformed as a beans by my Spring Framework. Let me create this package. Under this package, I'm going to create a new class. To create a new class, I'm going to press the same shortcut, and this time I'm going to select Java class option. The name that I'm going to give here is vehicle. This is my class name. Let me press enter. Once the class is created, as of now, it is an empty class. Inside this class, let me create some class variables. First, I'm trying to create a name variable using which I'll try to store what is the name of my vehicle. And to this name, I'm going to generate getters and setters. To generate getters and setters, you can press the same Control N. IntelliJ is going to give you some options. Here, you need to select getter and setter. Inside this new pop-up, I'm going to select OK, and with that, I'm going to get a getter method and setter method. With the help of this getter method, I can read what is the name of my vehicle, whereas with the help of setter method, I can set the name to my vehicle object. That is what my intention here. As of now, we just created a simple class which has a name field along with the getter and setter method. Let's try to go with simple examples. As we make progress inside the course, we're going to enhance the complexity of the examples. Now I have my vehicle class ready, but I need to give instructions to the Spring Framework saying that please create a bean for this class. How to do that? For that, we need to write some configurations. Let me go to project, and this time I'm going to create a new package with the name com.example.config. Config means configurations. Inside this config package, I'm going to write a Java class which is going to have some configurations that will be useful to the Spring Framework to create the beans. Inside this package, let me create a new Java class with the name project config. On top of this class, first, I need to mention an annotation from the Spring Framework. The annotation is at configuration. So please make sure the C is capital. As you can see, this configuration annotation is from the Spring Framework library. If you try to open this configuration annotation, it will open inside a new tab, and let's try to understand where this class is present. If I go to the project and click on this, select opened file, it is going to open where this configuration class is present. It is present here. If I try to scroll up, as you can see, it is present inside a jar with the name spring-context-6.2.3 jar. This jar belongs to the Spring Framework, and this is present inside the Maven repository location. Anytime if you try to open any .class file, IntelliJ, it will try to automatically decompile and show you what Java source code is present inside the file. But sometimes this decompiled code may not be 100% perfect. That's why what I will recommend is anytime if you try to add a dependency inside your Maven pom.xml, please come to this Maven and select these download sources and documentation option. Here you need to select these download sources and documentation, and with that all the source code and the documentation also will be downloaded into your local Maven repository. After the download, if I go to the same file which is configuration, this time here you will be able to see the extension is .java. Previously it was .class, but since right now we downloaded the source code and along with the documentation, all these beautiful documentation details along with the actual source code written by the Spring Framework can be seen inside this file. I hope it makes sense. Now let's try to understand why should we add these configuration annotation on top of this class. With the help of this configuration annotation, I'm telling to my Spring Framework whenever you're trying to start my application with the help of IOC container, please come and check this project config file, because inside this file I have written some Java configurations, and these Java configurations has some details around how a bean has to be created, which class beans has to be created. All such details are going to be available inside this file. So please come and visit this class. That is what I'm going to convey to the Spring Framework with the help of this annotation. If I don't mention this annotation, definitely Spring will not look into this file, because inside real projects, I may have thousands of Java classes. I can't expect Spring Framework to go and scan all the Java files. It will have too much performance problems. That's why wherever we are defining some configurations related to beans creation, we need to mention these at configuration annotation. I'm trying to mention some documentation as well for your reference. These Java comments will help you to understand what is the purpose of Spring configuration. In future, if you come to this class, you will have these details. Now inside this class, I'm going to create a new method. This method is responsible to create a object of vehicle. So let me mention the return type as vehicle, and the method name I'm going to mention as vehicle itself. Inside this method, I'm going to write some logic. Since this method is expected to return the object of vehicle, I'm going to create the object of vehicle here with the help of vehicle is equal to new vehicle, followed by, with the help of setter method available inside the vehicle, I'm going to set a name. Let me mention the name as Tesla, followed by I'm going to write a return statement which is going to return vehicle object. So this is a simple Java method which created a vehicle object, and it is going to have a name assigned, and the same I'm trying to return from this method. But here you may have a confusion, which is, Madan, you said we are going to create beans, but when we are creating beans means we are giving the instructions to the Spring Framework to create the objects of a class. But why you are creating the object of the class manually? As you can see here, I'm trying to create the object of vehicle manually. So this can lead to some confusion here. Let me try to clarify your confusion. This is one of the approach that I'm trying to teach you here. It is not always mandatory to create the object using the new operator. In the coming lectures, I'm going to show you some options where you don't even have to create the object using new operator to convert an object as a bean. But this option is available inside the Spring Framework to give flexibility to the developers. In this scenario, if you tell to the Spring Framework to create a bean of this vehicle, it will more than happy and it will create the bean by creating an object behind the scenes with the help of new operator. But how Spring Framework will know that my object should have a name of Tesla? It can never guess your business functionality. That's why when you have a requirement that you need to execute some business logic, and when you want to set some data inside your object, before you try to hand over that object as a bean to the Spring Framework, in all such scenarios, you can use this approach that we are going to discuss inside this lecture. So first we need to create a Java method. Inside the Java method, you need to write all your business logic, including the creation of the object. Once the method is completed, on top of this method, you need to mention an annotation from the Spring Framework. This annotation is @bean. With this annotation, we are telling to the Spring Framework, whatever object that is going to be returned from this method, please convert that object as a bean and please maintain its life cycle inside the Spring container. This is what the clue that we are trying to give to the Spring Framework with the help of this annotation. Let me try to mention some comments here. So here I'm trying to mention some comments which are going to help you to understand all the concepts that we have discussed around the bean annotation. Next, I'm going to create another method which is going to return string object, followed by the name of the method I'm going to mention as hello. And this method, it is not going to accept any input parameter. And inside this method, I'm going to return an object of string by mentioning return hello world. So here my method is trying to return a string object. In case if I want this string object to be managed as a bean by my Spring framework, I just have to mention @bean annotation here. Let me try to create one more method as well. This time the return type of this method is going to be an integer object, and the name of this method is going to be number. And from this method, I'm trying to return a random number, which is 16. This 16 primitive data type value will be auto-boxed and converted as an integer object. The same integer object will be maintained as a Spring Bean by the Spring framework because we have mentioned this @bean annotation. So in total, inside this file, we are trying to create 3 different beans. One is my own bean with the name vehicle, and the data types of the other 2 beans are from the core Java. So string object, integer object, these are the classes from the core Java, but still I can create the beans out of them by using these approaches. Here I want to share an important disclaimer. Usually the names of the methods will represent a verb but not a noun. As of now here, all my methods are representing noun like vehicle, hello, and number. But the standard is always to follow some verb because verb indicates an action. We should have method names like move vehicle, make vehicle, or say hello, or create number. But I'm not following that standard here because there is a reason. In this kind of setup, whatever is the method name, the same name will be considered as your bean name by the Spring framework. So behind the scenes, when this vehicle object is converted as a bean by the Spring framework, that bean is going to have a name as vehicle inside the Spring context. Because at the end of the day, Spring context may have thousands of beans. To recognize a specific bean, it is going to give a name to the bean. That name will be derived from this method name. Of course, we can give our own custom name as well to the bean. I'm going to teach you how to do that in the coming lectures. For now, let's go with this default behavior. Since the method name is going to be considered as a bean name, I want to have some meaningful names. If I give the method name as make vehicle, then my bean name also will be make vehicle, which may not make sense to me at least. That's why I'm trying to use nouns inside the method names. Let me try to mention Java comments as well here, saying that the method names usually follow verb notion, but for methods which we will use to create beans, can use nouns as names. This will be a good practice as the method names will become bean names as well in the context. I hope you're clear so far. In case if you are wondering about the look and feel of my IntelliJ, as I discussed inside the section 1, I have set up a dark theme inside my IntelliJ. The theme is, if I go to this theme, I have a theme with the name Monokai Pro, the same I'm trying to use. You can set up this theme by going to the plugins, and inside the plugins, you need to make sure you have installed a theme with the name Monokai. Here I have a plugin with the name Monokai Pro theme. The same I have installed. Once the installation is completed, you can go to the appearance and behavior and select this appearance. And here you need to select the theme as Monokai Pro and editor color theme as Darkula. And coming to the font, you can try to use whatever font you like. In my case, I'm trying to use these Comic Sans MS with a size 28. I hope you're clear about this theme. Let's continue this discussion in the next lecture as well.